What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over how you can prepare for the next Fortnite season, which is going to be Chapter 2 Remix. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below which weapon or item you're most excited to use in Chapter 2 Remix. Mine has to just be the regular pump shotgun. And so, if you guys were unaware, with all the confirmation and teasers we have recently gotten, we now know that 100% the next Fortnite season will be based on Chapter 2. Similar to how last year we had Season OG based on Chapter 1. It isn't really speculation anymore. Epic has confirmed it at this point with like teaser videos and stuff. And I think the best thing you can do to get ready for Chapter 2 Remix is going to be to play reload mode, especially if you came in with the more recent Fortnite chapters. If you didn't play Chapter 2 back in the day, or you started in like Chapter 5 especially, I think playing reload mode over the course of this next week is going to make it so much easier for you to adapt to Chapter 2 Remix when it does eventually drop, which is going to be November 2nd, the Saturday that's upcoming. At this point, we don't know exactly how different Chapter 2 Remix will be from how Chapter 2 actually was, but I think it's a pretty much guarantee that it's going to have some of the staples. It's going to have the regular AR, the pump shotgun, the tac shotgun, the regular SMG, and the regular sniper. I think all of these guns are pretty much guaranteed to return, and all of these guns are also available for you to use in reload mode right now. With the name being Chapter 2 Remix, people think there will be like differences between how Chapter 2 was then versus the season we get now. And I think that's definitely possible. But either way, I think these staple weapons are still going to be a part of the game. And I would be very surprised if they add things like the MK7 or like the Twin Mag AR, like really good red dot ARs. I think we're going to have to be using, you know, the core Chapter 2 loophole. And not only will familiarizing yourself with these weapons make it easier for you to feel comfortable with the launch of Chapter 2 Remix, and that's like nice, but I think it's an even bigger deal going into this season because a lot of these weapons function very differently than how the Chapter 5 weapons function. And that's why I said earlier, especially if you started playing in Chapter 5, I would highly recommend playing Reload over the course of the next week. The first major difference is going to be, aside from the sniper, all of these weapons are hit scan. And what that means is that there's no bullet drop or travel time. It's like you're shooting lasers that like teleport to the enemy. The moment you shoot, the bullet goes where it's going to go and it hits what it's going to hit. You don't have to worry about leading your target. You don't have to worry about like aiming above them to account for bullet drop. And this is with the regular weapons. The sniper is a projectile weapon. So the sniper does have bullet drop and bullet travel time, but when we're talking about the regular AR, the SMG, the shotguns, all of these weapons are hit scan, and that means, like I said, you don't need to aim above opponents, you don't need to lead opponents, the bullets basically teleport, and that is a drastic difference from how Chapter 5 was, because with Chapter 5, all of the weapons were projectile, meaning they did have bullet drop and bullet travel time. So if you've been, you know, accustomed to having to lead your shots and it just kind of becomes second nature for you, it might be a little bit before you can adjust to going back to hit scan. So playing reload in the meantime will make it a bit easier for you to get used to these weapons and then hit the ground running when Remix does inevitably drop. Another major difference between the Chapter 2 weapons and more modern Fortnite weapons is going to be bloom. This is when you're using the third-person weapons and then your crosshair expands as you shoot, and the bullet can basically go anywhere within your crosshair. So the larger your crosshair is, the more inaccurate your weapon is. And so hitting shots consistently at range with these bloom weapons comes down to either burst firing or tap firing. You basically need to manage the size of your crosshair by controlling your fire rate depending on the range of the opponent. If they're really close to you, you can just full spray and it's no big deal. But at really long ranges, you're probably going to need to tap fire. And this is another major difference between the older Fortnite chapters and the more modern Fortnite chapters. Chapter 5 did have bloom as well. Like if you weren't able to put attachments on your weapon yet and you had no sight at all, then you did have to deal with bloom. But it wasn't to the same extent as like the old weapons were. Like a max bloom striker AR still has a smaller reticle than like a max bloom regular AR. And in Reload now, the hammer AR is much better than the regular AR, but there is still this component to managing bloom that I think even using the hammer AR, you'll somewhat get used to. But if you want to make the most of this time, I would recommend using the regular AR while playing Reload mode over the next week to get used to that weapon's bloom and get used to like managing that factor of like using the weapon. And that is another big difference between the old weapons in Chapter 5, because Chapter 5, like I said, most of the time you're probably just going to put a sight on your gun anyways, and then you don't really have to worry about managing bloom at all. Another key difference between the weapons is going to be the way the shotguns work, because with Chapter 5, we've had a lot of spammy shotguns that are like kind of the meta, and with like the Gatekeeper shotgun, the Frenzy Auto shotgun, and there is a spammy shotgun in Chapter 2, the tac shotgun, but it's not as insane as like the auto shotguns that we've had. And I feel like using the auto shotguns that we've had, like the Gatekeeper and the Frenzy Auto shotgun, you can develop a lot of bad habits because of how ridiculous these shotguns are. Whereas like if you try to play the same way with attack, it can work out sometimes, but it's not going to be as just like big of a factor. I think the pump shotgun will probably be the best shotgun for a lot of Chapter 2 OG, or for a lot of players playing in Chapter 2 Remix. And if you haven't become accustomed to like the pump, swap to a spray, back to pump when it's ready to shoot yet, if you haven't gotten used to that playstyle, then again, practicing that in reload mode in the meantime can help you play better when Chapter 2 Remix does drop. But even if you hate using pump shotguns and you want to use the tac, that's fine. But again, trying it out now in reload, you'll probably realize how insane a lot of the Chapter 5 auto shotguns were. And so making that realization and like making those adjustments now when it's not everything, brand new with a new season, I think makes it easier to adjust. And then another key difference between the more modern shotguns and the older shotguns is the range. If you look at the range of something, even like the hammer pump, but especially like the Gatekeeper shotgun, the Sovereign shotgun, these shotguns had insane ranges. And when you compare it to the older shotguns, the range isn't as good on those old shotguns. And this is another adjustment that you're going to have to get used to when using the older shotguns, is playing, the range correctly and playing around the weapon well. If you're expecting Gatekeeper shotgun range on attack shotgun, you are going to be, disappointed, and you're going to be hitting for slightly more than nothing. So again, that's another reason why I think playing reload mode and getting accustomed to these shotguns will make it easier for you to play in Chapter 2 Remix. The next thing I'm going to talk about is mobility. This is going to be a lot of assumption on my part, because Chapter 2 didn't really have much mobility aside from like launch pads and crash pads, I guess, and then the boats, cars later on. But I would highly expect for Chapter 2 Remix for them to add mobility items like shockwaves and the grappler. This is what they did for Chapter 1 OG last year. Both shockwaves and the grappler were in the loot pool for the entirety of the season, even when those items weren't actually in the loot pool during the seasons that they were trying to replicate during Chapter 1 OG. And I think this is one of the ways that it's going to be a remix season, is that they're going to add some of these mobility items that weren't there back in the day. I could definitely be wrong about this. Like I said, it's assumption on my part, but I expect things like shockwaves and the grappler to be in the loot pool. And if you've been playing during Chapter 5, you probably have used shockwaves. They've been in loot pool and they've been good, but maybe not if you were just using like the nitro gloves and then the jetpack all season, maybe the shuri claws after that, chainsaw. If you haven't gotten used to using shockwaves and you haven't gotten used to using the grappler, I think it's definitely a different style of mobility item than a lot of the things we've had in more recent seasons, if you weren't using shockwaves, obviously. So taking time to get accustomed to these in reload mode, I think will make it easier for you to play in Chapter 2 Remix. If these items do come to the loot pool like how I expect them to, I could be wrong on this, like I've already said a few times, we'll see. But I think familiarizing yourself with shockwaves and the grappler especially, shockwaves are difficult for some players to use, but I feel like the grappler requiring you to kind of look where you want to go mid-fight rather than just kind of hitting the button and being out of there is something that a lot of players kind of struggle to adjust to. So take the time to use those mobility items in reload, or just, this is another reason why I think reload is a decent way for you to practice for Chapter 2 Remix. As far as POIs go, there are actually 2 POIs on the Chapter 2 map that are also on the reload map, and that is going to be Pleasant Park and Retail Row. So if you guys, learn these POIs now on the reload map, like let's say you've never played reload, you've never played Chapter 1 OG, never played Chapter 1 or 2, everything is about to be brand new to you. Learning these POIs a bit in reload, again, I think will make it a little bit easier for you to play the game when Chapter 2 Remix does come out, having some sort of familiarity with the map and not having it be like entirely foreign and entirely new, learning new layouts and where the loot spawns and stuff. So if it is going to be an entirely new experience for you and you are going to be playing reload in this time to get used to stuff, I would say try landing at Pleasant Park and Retail when you can and just kind of learning these POIs a bit. That way it's a little bit easier for you when Chapter 2 Remix does come out. And that is kind of it. Like there's some map POIs that are going to transfer. There's some items that I think will transfer. Playstyle around these items, I think it's useful to learn beforehand. But also just the fact that reload mode is really fast paced and you can get in a lot of fights in a very short time span. And I feel like this is not only going to make it faster for you to learn how to play fights with some of these items, but it's also, I think, just going to help you get better at the game. It's one of the things I've stressed a lot in videos. My biggest piece of advice for trying to improve in this game is just getting in a lot of fights quickly and kind of getting those reps in as far as fighting goes. And that is something that reload can help you with. And then there's also kind of this notion that reload mode is incredibly sweaty. Like the matches are much harder than regular BR matches. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you are someone that feels that way when you play reload mode, like you feel like the opponents are much harder than what you typically run into, then this is another opportunity for you to get better, because playing against those better people is going to help you get better at the game faster than playing against like the easier opponents you're accustomed to would. But either way, the pacing is very fast, and I think that's going to help you get better at the game faster, in addition to learning all these items and POIs that'll help you when Chapter 2 Remix does inevitably drop. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below which weapon you're most excited to use in Chapter 2 Remix. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.